David had always been the kind of guy who believed in facts. As an engineer working at the space monitoring station outside town, he spent his nights watching satellite feeds and tracking objects in space. It was quiet work, but he loved it. The silence, the stars, and the feeling that he was connected to something bigger than himself. On that October night, everything seemed normal. David was halfway through his shift when he decided to step outside for some fresh air. The facility was located far from the city lights, making it the perfect place to see the night sky in all its glory. He often took these breaks, looking up at the stars and thinking about the mysteries of the universe. That's when he saw it. What looked like a shooting star suddenly stopped mid-flight and changed direction. David rubbed his eyes, thinking he must be tired, but no. The bright object was definitely moving in ways that defied everything he knew about physics. It seemed to spiral down toward the forest about a mile away from the station. His curiosity got the better of him. David grabbed a flashlight from his car and decided to investigate. As an engineer, he couldn't ignore something so unusual. Maybe it was a piece of space debris or a weather balloon. There had to be a logical explanation. The walk through the forest was eerie. The usual night sounds seemed muted, and there was a strange humming in the air. David followed the direction where he saw the object land, his flashlight cutting through the darkness between the trees. After about 20 minutes of walking, he saw a soft, blue glow coming from a clearing ahead. What he found there changed his life forever. In the center of the clearing sat what looked like a small craft, no bigger than a car, made of a material he had never seen before. It seemed to shimmer and change color in the moonlight. But that wasn't the most shocking part. Standing beside the craft was a woman. She was tall, probably around 6 feet, with long, flowing hair that seemed to move even though there was no wind. Her skin had a soft, pale glow, and her eyes were the most beautiful thing David had ever seen. They were deep blue, like looking into the ocean at night, with tiny points of light that seemed like stars. When she saw David approaching, she didn't run or seem afraid. Instead, she looked at him with a mixture of relief and curiosity. "Hello," she said, and her voice was like music. "I didn't expect to meet anyone here." David stood there, mouth open, trying to process what he was seeing. This had to be a dream. Or maybe he was having some kind of breakdown from working too many night shifts. I saw that thing crash," he managed to say, pointing at the craft. She smiled sadly. "Not crashed, emergency landing. My ship had a problem with the power system. I'm trying to fix it, but it might take some time." "Your ship?" David asked, still not believing what he was hearing. "I know this is difficult to understand," she said gently. "I come from a place very far from here, farther than you can imagine. My name is Luna." David wanted to laugh, to tell himself this was all impossible, but something about her presence, the way she spoke, the genuine concern in her eyes, made him believe her. Maybe it was the engineer in him, always open to new possibilities. Or maybe it was something else entirely. "You're from space?" he asked. Luna nodded. "A star system you call Vega. We've been watching your planet for a long time, but we don't usually make contact. What happened tonight wasn't planned." David looked at the craft again. Up close, he could see it was definitely not human technology. The surface was smooth but seemed to pulse with its own energy. There were no visible seams or joints, as if the entire thing had been grown rather than built. "Are you hurt?" he found himself asking. "No, but I'm stranded until I can repair the power core. It could take several hours, maybe until dawn." David made a decision that surprised even him. "You can't stay out here. It gets cold at night, and sometimes people come hiking through these woods. There's a small cabin where I live, not far from here. You could wait there while you figure out what to do." Luna looked at him with those incredible eyes, and David felt like she was seeing right into his soul. "You would help me? Even though you don't know me, even though this must seem impossible to you?" "I don't know why," David said honestly. "But yes, I want to help." The walk back to David's cabin was surreal. Luna moved with a grace he had never seen before, as if her feet barely touched the ground. She asked him questions about his work, about Earth, about human life, and her curiosity seemed genuine and innocent. David's cabin was small but comfortable. As he made some tea, Luna looked around with fascination at ordinary things like books, photographs, and his collection of astronomy magazines. "You study the stars," she observed. "I love them," David replied. "I always wondered if there was life out there. Guess I got my answer." They talked for hours. Luna told him about her world, about cities that floated in the clouds and oceans that glow with natural light. She spoke of her people, who had learned to travel between stars thousands of years ago. David shared his dreams of space exploration, his loneliness working the night shift, and his wonder at the universe. As the night went on, David found himself drawn to Luna in ways he couldn't explain. It wasn't just her otherworldly beauty. There was a connection between them that felt deeper than anything he had ever experienced. When she looked at him, he felt understood in a way that was both thrilling and terrifying. "I should go check on my ship," Luna said as the first hints of dawn appeared on the horizon. But neither of them moved. They sat there on David's couch, looking into each other's eyes, and the space between them seemed to shrink. "I feel like I've known you forever," David whispered. "Perhaps you have," Luna replied softly. "Perhaps some connections exist beyond time and space." What happened next was the most beautiful and intense experience of David's life. Without words, without questions about the impossibility of it all, they came together in a moment that felt like destiny. When David woke up, the sun was streaming through his windows. He reached out, but Luna was gone. On his nightstand was a small, crystal pendant that pulsed with a soft inner light. Next to it was a note written in handwriting more beautiful than any art he had ever seen. "Thank you for showing me that kindness exists in every corner of the universe. I will never forget our connection. Perhaps our paths will cross again among the stars. Until then, keep this close to your heart. Luna." David rushed outside and ran to the clearing, but there was no sign of the craft or Luna. Only a circular patch of grass that seemed greener and more vibrant than the rest of the forest. Standing there in the morning light, holding the crystal pendant, David wondered if any of it had been real. But deep in his heart, he knew it was. His life had been touched by something magical, something that challenged everything he thought he knew about the universe. He had no idea that this one night would change his entire world in ways he couldn't imagine. The weeks after Luna disappeared felt like living in a fog. David would wake up every morning, look at the crystal pendant on his nightstand, and wonder if that incredible night had really happened. During the day, surrounded by computers and satellite equipment at work, it seemed impossible. But at night, when he held the pendant and felt its warm glow, he knew it was all real. His coworkers at the space station started noticing changes in him. David, who used to be focused and sharp, now seemed distracted. He would stare out the windows for long periods, scanning the sky as if waiting for something. During lunch breaks, instead of reading technical journals, he found himself researching things he had never cared about before. "You okay, buddy?" asked his colleague Tom one evening. "You seem different lately." David looked up from his computer screen, where he had been reading about unexplained lights in the sky reported by people around the world. "Just tired, I guess, working too many night shifts." But it wasn't tiredness. David felt like he was living between two worlds now. The normal world where he went to work, paid bills, and talked to neighbors about the weather. And another world where magical beings traveled between stars, and connections could happen that defied all logic. His girlfriend Rachel noticed the change too. They had been dating for about a year, and she knew David well enough to see that something was bothering him. "You've been acting strange for weeks," she said one evening when they were having dinner. "Did something happen at work? Are you in some kind of trouble?" David wanted to tell her everything. He wanted to share the most amazing experience of his life with the person closest to him. But how could he? How do you tell someone you love that you met an alien and spent one perfect night with her? "Nothing's wrong," he lied. "Just work stress." Rachel didn't believe him, and David could see the hurt in her eyes. Their relationship had always been built on honesty. and now he was keeping the biggest secret of his life from her. The crystal pendant became both his comfort and his torment. During the day, he kept it hidden under his shirt, close to his heart like Luna had asked. At night, he would hold it and remember every moment of their time together. Sometimes the crystal would pulse brighter, and David wondered if it meant Luna was thinking of him too. He started having dreams that felt more real than his waking life. In these dreams, he was flying through space, seeing planets and stars up close. He saw Luna's world, with its floating cities and glowing oceans. He saw her people, tall and graceful like her, living in harmony with technology that seemed like magic. But the dreams weren't just beautiful. Sometimes they were urgent, showing him images he didn't understand. Dark ships in space, worried faces, and Luna looking afraid. David would wake up with his heart pounding, wondering if these were just dreams or if somehow Luna was trying to communicate with him across the vast distance of space. His obsession with finding answers grew stronger every day. David spent his free time researching everything he could about space phenomena, ancient civilizations, and people who claimed to have had encounters like his. Most of the stories seemed fake or crazy, but some resonated with him in ways that made him uncomfortable. He found forums online where people shared their experiences with unexplained encounters. Reading their stories, David realized he wasn't alone. There were others who had experienced things that couldn't be explained by normal science. Some had physical proof, like unusual marks or objects. Others, like David, had been left with memories that seemed too vivid to be dreams and too impossible to be real. At work, David began using his access to the satellite systems to search for unusual activity in space. He told himself he was just curious, but deep down he was hoping to find some sign of Luna or her people. The space around Earth was busy with human-made satellites and space junk, but sometimes David would spot something that didn't match any known object. His supervisor, Dr. Peterson, called him into the office one day. "David, I need to talk to you about your recent work. You've been running searches through our systems that aren't part of your assigned duties. Some of the data requests you've made are unusual." David felt his heart race. "I was just following up on some anomalies in the satellite feeds. Anomalies that you didn't report through proper channels," Dr. Peterson said, looking concerned rather than angry. "David, you're one of our best engineers, but lately you seem distracted. Is everything okay at home?" "Everything's fine," David said quickly. "I'll stick to my assigned tasks from now on." But even as he promised to focus on his regular work, David knew he couldn't stop searching. The need to find some trace of Luna had become stronger than his need for job security. His relationship with Rachel continued to deteriorate. She could sense that he was keeping something important from her, and it was creating a wall between them that grew higher every day. "I feel like I don't know you anymore," she said one night. "It's like you're here physically, but your mind is somewhere else entirely." David looked at her across the dinner table and realized she was right. Part of him was somewhere else, floating among the stars with Luna. But how could he explain that without sounding insane? "Maybe we should take a break," Rachel said quietly, "until you figure out whatever is going on with you." David nodded, though his heart ached. Rachel was a good person who deserved honesty, but the truth was something he couldn't share with anyone. After Rachel left, David sat alone in his cabin, holding the crystal pendant. It pulsed with that familiar warm light, and for a moment he felt connected to something vast and beautiful beyond the stars. "Luna," he whispered into the darkness. "I don't know if you can hear me, but I haven't forgotten. I'm still here, still waiting." The crystal grew brighter for just a moment, and David felt a warmth spread through his chest. It might have been his imagination, but it felt like a response. 3 months had passed since that magical night, and David realized this. Life had been permanently changed. He couldn't go back to being the person he was before. The encounter with Luna had opened his eyes to possibilities he had never imagined, and now the ordinary world felt small and limited. He started making plans to request a transfer to a more remote facility, somewhere with even less light pollution and more access to deep space monitoring equipment. If Luna was out there, if her people were real, then maybe he could find some way to contact them. His friends thought he was having a midlife crisis. His family worried about his isolation and his strange new interests. But David didn't care what anyone else thought. He had touched something extraordinary, and he would spend the rest of his life trying to understand what it meant. Late at night, when the space station was quiet and he was alone with the stars, David would hold the crystal and remember Luna's words about connections that exist beyond time and space. He had no way of knowing that she was thinking of him, too, or that their connection had created something that would soon change both their lives forever. The crystal pendant wasn't just a memory of their night together. It was a bond that connected them across the universe, and soon that bond would bring Luna back to Earth with news that would turn David's world upside down once again. 2 years had passed since that October night when David's life changed forever. He had finally started to find some peace with his new reality. The crystal pendant still glowed softly each night, and he still dreamed of Luna and her world among the stars, but the desperate searching had calmed into quiet acceptance. David had transferred to an even more remote monitoring station in the mountains, where he spent his nights alone with the satellites and the endless sky. His colleagues here knew him as a quiet, dedicated engineer who kept to himself. They didn't know about the dreams, the pendant, or the way he sometimes caught himself scanning the stars for signs of visitors from other worlds. Rachel had moved on, as he knew she would. His family still worried about his isolation, but they had stopped asking so many questions. David had built a simple, solitary life that worked for him. During the day, he maintained the equipment and filed his reports. At night, he watched the sky and remembered what it felt like to touch something magical. That Tuesday evening started like any other. David was running diagnostics on the main satellite array when the power fluctuated. The lights dimmed for a moment, then came back stronger than before. All the computer screens flickered, showing strange patterns of static before returning to normal. What the heck was that? David muttered. Checking the power readings, everything looked normal, but something felt different in the air. There was that same humming sensation he remembered from the forest 2 years ago. He stepped outside to check the backup generators and froze. Standing in the parking lot, illuminated by the station's security lights, was Luna. But she wasn't alone. Clinging to her hand was a small child, maybe 18 months old. Even from a distance, David could see that the little girl had his green eyes and the shape of his face, but she moved with Luna's graceful, otherworldly quality. David's legs felt weak. He grabbed the door frame to steady himself, sure that he must be hallucinating. But as Luna walked toward him, he could see the worry in her beautiful star-filled eyes, and the protective way she held the child close. "Hello, David," Luna said softly when she reached him. Her voice was exactly as he remembered, like music carried on the wind. "Luna," he whispered, hardly believing she was real. "You're really here." "I had to come back," she said. "There are things I need to tell you, things that couldn't wait any longer." David looked down at the little girl, who was studying him with an intelligence that seemed far beyond her apparent age. Those were definitely his eyes looking back at him. But there was something else there too, a depth of understanding that made him feel like she could see right through him. "Is she?" David started to ask, but couldn't finish the question. "Her name is Stella," Luna said gently. "And yes, she's yours. She's ours." The world seemed to tilt sideways. David had imagined this possibility in his wildest dreams, but hearing it confirmed was overwhelming. He was a father. This beautiful, otherworldly child was his daughter. But how? I mean, I know how. But David struggled to find words. "Time moves differently where I come from," Luna explained. "What was one night for you was much longer. In my world, I've been caring for her since she was born, but now I need your help." Stella let go of Luna's hand and took a step toward David. When she spoke, her voice was clear and musical like her mother's, but with an accent that was purely human. "Papa," she said simply, and David felt his heart break and mend at the same time. "She knows about me?" he asked, kneeling down to Stella's level. "I told her about her father on Earth," Luna said. About the kind man who helped me when I was lost. She's been asking to meet you for months. David reached out tentatively, and Stella took his hand. The moment their skin touched, he felt a jolt of connection that was even stronger than what he had experienced with Luna. This was his child, his blood. And somehow she felt familiar in a way that defied explanation. We can't stay here long, Luna said, looking around nervously. It's not safe for any of us. Not safe. What do you mean? David asked, standing up but keeping hold of Stella's tiny hand. Luna's expression grew serious. My people discovered what happened between us. Some of them are not happy about our connection or about Stella's existence. They believe mixing our species is dangerous. Dangerous how? Stella is special, David. She has abilities that neither of our species possess alone. She can do things that even my people cannot do. Luna paused, choosing her words carefully. And there are others who would use those abilities for their own purposes, as if to demonstrate. Stella pointed at a small rock near the parking lot. Without touching it, she made it rise into the air and glow with soft light before gently setting it back down. David stared in amazement. How did she do that? She's a bridge between our worlds, Luna said. But that makes her valuable too. Some people and dangerous to others. We can't return to my home world. And staying on Earth means living in hiding. What kind of abilities are we talking about? David asked, his engineering mind trying to process what he had seen. She can communicate without words, move objects with her mind, and sometimes she knows things before they happen, Luna explained. Yesterday, she told me that men in dark clothes were coming to our hiding place. We left just in time. The weight of the situation began to sink in. David looked down at Stella, who was now playing with the crystal pendant that had somehow appeared in her small hands. He realized he must have unconsciously pulled it out when he saw them. That's yours, Stella said, offering the crystal back to him. Mama gave it to you so you would remember us. I never forgot, David said, taking the pendant and hanging it around his neck again. Not for a single day. I know, Stella said with that unsettling wisdom. I could feel you thinking about us, even from far away. Luna knelt beside them both. David, I need to ask something of you, and I know it's not fair. Stella needs protection that I can't give her alone. She needs to learn about both sides of her heritage. And she needs to understand how to live safely in your world. You want me to help raise her, David said. I want us to raise her together, Luna corrected. But that means leaving everything you know behind. The people who are looking for us won't stop. And they have technology that makes them very dangerous. David looked into Luna's eyes, then down at Stella, who was watching him with hopeful expectation. 2 years ago, he had been a lonely engineer with a simple life. Now he was being asked to become a father to a child who could move objects with her mind and to go into hiding with the most extraordinary woman he had ever met. Where will we go? He asked. There are places between worlds, Luna said mysteriously. Safe places where people like us can live without fear. But once we leave, we can never come back to this life. Stella tugged on David's hand. Will you come with us, Papa? Mama says you're brave like the heroes in her stories. David looked around at the monitoring station, at the life he had built in solitude. It wasn't much, but it was safe and predictable. What Luna was offering was the complete opposite, dangerous, uncertain, but filled with love and purpose. How long do I have to decide? He asked. They're already tracking us, Luna said. We need to leave tonight, or we might not get another chance. David closed his eyes and took a deep breath. When he opened them, Stella was smiling at him with complete trust, and Luna was watching him with hope and fear mixed in her starlit eyes. I don't need time to decide, David said. You're my family. Of course I'm coming with you. Stella clapped her hands with joy, and several of the security lights around the parking lot flickered in response. Luna smiled with relief, and David felt that same sense of destiny he had experienced 2 years ago. His quiet, lonely life was about to end, but something infinitely more meaningful was about to begin. The first week of life on the run was like learning to live in a completely different world. David had packed only the essentials, some clothes, his laptop, and the crystal pendant that had started it all. Everything else from his old life was left behind at the monitoring station, along with a simple resignation letter that gave no real explanation for his sudden departure. Luna had a small ship hidden in the mountains, much larger than the craft David had seen 2 years ago. It was camouflaged with technology that made it nearly invisible to both human and alien detection systems. Inside, it was surprisingly comfortable, with sleeping areas, a small kitchen, and advanced computers that Luna used to monitor space traffic and track their pursuers. "We can't stay in one place for more than a few days," Luna explained as they flew to their first safe house, an abandoned cabin deep in the Canadian wilderness. "Both my people and yours have ways of finding us if we remain stationary too long." Stella adapted to their nomadic lifestyle with the flexibility that only children possess. She seemed to view their constant traveling as an adventure, delighting in seeing new places and meeting the other refugees they encountered along the way. But David could see the strain it put on Luna, who was constantly watching for signs of danger. Their second week, while hiding in a remote farmhouse in Montana, David got his first real glimpse of Stella's extraordinary abilities. She was playing in the yard when a hawk circled overhead, diving toward a family of rabbits near the garden. Without thinking, Stella raised her hand and spoke in a language David had never heard before. The hawk suddenly changed direction, landing gently on a fence post instead. The rabbits looked up at Stella as if thanking her, then hopped away safely. "Did she just talk to that hawk?" David asked Luna. "She can communicate with all living things," Luna said, watching their daughter with a mixture of pride and worry. "It's one of many gifts that make her so special and so dangerous to those who would use her." David was beginning to understand why they were being hunted. A child who could communicate with animals, move objects with her mind, and seem to know things before they happen would be invaluable to anyone seeking power or control. Their third week brought their first real encounter with danger. They were staying in a small motel outside Denver when Luna's monitoring equipment detected unusual activity in the sky above the city. "We need to leave now," Luna said urgently, packing their few belongings. "There are ships approaching that don't belong to any Earth government." As they loaded their things into Luna's ship, David saw them, 3 dark objects moving across the night sky in formation. They made no sound and showed no lights, but somehow David could feel their presence like a cold weight in his chest. "Who are they?" he asked as Luna started the ship's engines. "Hunters from my world," Luna said grimly. "They've been sent to bring Stella back, whether we agree or not." The chase that followed was terrifying and exhilarating at the same time. Luna piloted their ship through mountain valleys and over vast plains, using the Earth's natural terrain to mask their energy signature. The pursuing ships were faster, but Luna knew their ship better and had the advantage of desperation. "Papa, I can help," Stella said from her seat between them. "No, sweetheart," Luna said firmly. "Using your abilities will make it easier for them to track us." But when one of the pursuing ships got close enough to fire some kind of energy weapon that rocked their craft violently, Stella couldn't stay out of the fight. David felt a strange sensation, like electricity in the air, and suddenly their ship was surrounded by what looked like a protective bubble of light. The energy blasts from their pursuers bounced harmlessly off this barrier, and Luna used the distraction to escape into a thick cloud bank over the Rocky Mountains. "Stella, what did you do?" David asked, amazed. "I made us safe," she said simply, as if creating force fields was the most natural thing in the world. They lost their pursuers that night, but the encounter changed everything. David realized that their daughter wasn't just special, she was powerful in ways that neither he nor Luna fully understood. "The hunters won't give up," Luna told him. Later, as they hid in an abandoned mine shaft in Nevada, "and now they know how strong Stella has become. That will make them more determined, but also more careful." "What do they want with her?" David asked. "My people are dying," Luna admitted. "Our world has been at war for generations, and we're losing. They believe Stella's abilities could turn the tide of the conflict. They want to take her back and train her to be a weapon." "Over my dead body," David said fiercely. Luna smiled. "Sadly, That's exactly what they're hoping to avoid. They'd rather convince us to cooperate willingly. The next few weeks brought a new kind of danger. Instead of direct pursuit, they began encountering other beings who approached them with offers and promises. A tall, elegant woman who claimed to be Luna's cousin appeared at a gas station in Utah, promising safety and comfort if they would just return home. Stella could have everything she wants, the woman said: education, friends, a chance to develop her gifts properly. Here on Earth, she'll always have to hide what she is. Here on Earth, she's free to choose her own path, David replied. That's worth more than all the comfort in the universe. But the constant pressure was wearing on all of them. Stella began having nightmares about being taken away from her parents. Luna grew more anxious with each passing day, jumping at every unusual sound or unexpected visitor. David found himself constantly looking over his shoulder, wondering if today would be the day their luck ran out. Their lowest point came during their 6th week on the run. They had taken shelter in an old lighthouse on the Oregon coast, thinking the isolation would provide safety. Instead, they found themselves surrounded. David woke before dawn to find Luna standing at the window, her face pale with fear. They found us, she whispered, outside. At least a dozen figures stood motionless in the morning mist. Some looked human, others were clearly from Luna's world, and a few appeared to be something else entirely. They had formed a complete circle around the lighthouse, cutting off any chance of escape. What do they want? David asked, holding Stella close as she woke up. To talk, said a voice behind them. They turned to find a man standing in the lighthouse door. Though David was certain he had locked it the night before, the stranger was tall and imposing, with silver hair and eyes that seemed ancient. My name is Commander Vega, he said formally. I represent the High Council of Luna's people. We've come to make you an offer. We're not interested, Luna said defiantly. You haven't heard it yet, the commander replied. We're not here to take Stella by force. We're here to offer all 3 of you citizenship in our world, with full rights and protections. The child can grow up knowing both sides of her heritage, and her abilities can be used to help save countless lives. And if we refuse? David asked. Commander Vega's expression grew cold. Then we will be forced to consider other options. The child is too valuable to be left wandering freely through the universe. Her powers are growing stronger every day, and without proper training, she could become dangerous to everyone around her. As if to prove his point, Stella's emotions caused the lighthouse's old lamp to suddenly flare to life, sending beams of brilliant light spinning across the ocean. See, the commander said. She needs guidance that only we can provide. David looked at Luna, then down at Stella, who was watching the adults with frightened eyes. They had reached a crossroads, and the choices they made in the next few moments would determine the fate of their family. Forever, we need time to think. Luna said, You have until sunset. Commander Vega replied, Choose wisely. The safety of many worlds may depend on your decision. After he left, the 3 of them sat together in the lighthouse, surrounded by beings who could end their freedom with a single command. But David had learned something important. During their weeks on the run, family wasn't about having a safe place to hide. It was about facing the impossible together and never giving up hope. Whatever we decide, he told Luna and Stella, we decide as a family, and we stick together no matter what. Little did they know that Stella had already made a decision of her own, one that would surprise everyone and change the course of their lives in ways none of them could imagine. The sun was beginning to set over the Oregon coast, painting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and purple. David, Luna, and Stella sat together in the lighthouse, knowing that their time was almost up. Outside, Commander Vega and his people waited patiently for their answer. I don't want to go to their world, Stella said quietly, speaking for the first time since the morning confrontation. But I don't want to keep running either. What do you want, sweetheart? David asked, stroking her hair. Stella looked up at him with those wise, ancient eyes that sometimes made David forget she was just a child. I want us to find a place where we can all be together, where I can learn about both sides of my family without anyone trying to use me. There might not be such a place, Luna said sadly. Yes, there is, Stella said with surprising confidence. I've seen it in my dreams. There's a place between worlds where people like us live, people who chose love over fear. Before either parent could ask what she meant, Stella stood up and walked to the lighthouse door. David and Luna rushed after her, afraid she might try to face Commander Vega alone. But Stella surprised them all. Instead of addressing the commander, she spoke directly to all the assembled beings, her young voice carrying clearly across the evening air. I know you think I'm important because of what I can do, she said, but I'm just a little girl who wants to live with her mama and papa. I don't want to be a weapon for anyone. Commander Vega stepped forward. Child, you don't understand the responsibility that comes with your gifts. I understand more than you think, Stella replied, and as she spoke, her abilities manifested in ways David had never seen before. The lighthouse beam began pulsing in rhythm with her words, and every electronic device for miles around started receiving the same signal, her voice, broadcast to anyone who was listening. My mama's people and my papa's people both want to use me for war, Stella continued, her message now reaching far beyond the lighthouse. But I choose peace. I choose to use my abilities to help people, not hurt them. The lighthouse beam suddenly exploded outward, but instead of harsh light, it carried images and emotions that everyone present could feel. They saw Luna's war-torn homeworld, but also Earth's struggles with conflict and hatred. They felt the loneliness David had experienced before meeting Luna, and the fear Luna had carried while hiding from her own people. But most powerfully, they felt the love that bound the three of them together, a love so pure and strong that it seemed to wash away all the anger and fear that had driven the conflict. There, Stella said, pointing up at the stars. That's where we need to go. Following her gesture, everyone looked up to see a new light in the sky. It wasn't a star or a planet, but something else entirely, a space station that hadn't been there moments before. How did you do that? Commander Vega asked, his stern expression replaced by wonder. I called them, Stella said simply, the people who live between worlds. They've been waiting for us. A new ship descended from the sky, larger than Luna's craft but smaller than the council vessels. When it landed, the door opened to reveal beings that David had never imagined. Some looked human, others resembled Luna's people, and still others were clearly from entirely different worlds. But they all had something in common, a sense of peace and acceptance. That was immediately apparent. A woman who appeared to be a mix of human and something else entirely stepped forward. I'm Captain Nova, she said, her voice warm and welcoming. We represent the Haven Station, a sanctuary for those who choose unity over division. Commander Vega frowned. The Haven is a myth, a story told to comfort refugees. The Haven is very real, Captain Nova replied, and it exists because of children like Stella, who refuse to let the hatred of adults destroy their future. She knelt down to Stella's level. You called us here, didn't you? Use your abilities to reach across space and ask for help. Stella nodded. I saw you in my dreams. You help families like ours. We do indeed, Captain Nova said, standing and addressing David and Luna. The Haven Station is home to over 10,000 beings from dozens of different worlds. Families who chose love over war, unity over division. We have humans who fell in love with aliens, and aliens who chose to protect Earth. We have children, like Stella, who represent the best hope for peace between our peoples. David felt a surge of hope unlike anything he had experienced during their weeks of running. Is it really safe, safer than anywhere else in the galaxy? Captain Nova assured him. The Haven exists in neutral space, protected by treaties with multiple worlds. No government or military force is allowed to operate there. It's a place where children can grow up learning about all aspects of their heritage without fear. Commander Vega stepped forward angrily. You cannot take the child. The Council has a rightful claim to her. The Council has no claim on anyone. Who chooses freedom? Captain Nova replied firmly, and according to galactic law, the child's safety takes precedence over political concerns. Stella walked over to Commander Vega and took his hand. The tall, Imposing warrior seemed to soften in her touch. "I don't hate you or your people," she said gently. "I know you're afraid because your world is in trouble. But taking me away from my family won't solve anything. War never really solves anything." As she spoke, David could see tears forming in the commander's eyes. Stella's empathic abilities were showing him something. Perhaps a vision of what peace could look like, or memories of his own family that he had lost to the conflict. "The child speaks wisdom beyond her years," he said quietly. "Perhaps. Perhaps there is another way." Captain Nova smiled. "There's always another way. The Haven has negotiators and peacekeepers who specialize in resolving conflicts between worlds. If your people are truly interested in peace rather than conquest, we can help." Over the next hour, as the stars grew brighter overhead, a remarkable negotiation took place. Commander Vega spoke with his superiors through advanced communication devices, while Captain Nova contacted the Haven station. David and Luna held Stella between them, watching their daughter's dream of peace slowly become reality. In the end, an agreement was reached. Stella and her family would be given sanctuary at Haven Station, but she would also serve as a young ambassador, helping to broker peace talks between Luna's people and other worlds in conflict. It wouldn't be a normal childhood, but it would be one filled with purpose and surrounded by love as they prepared to leave Earth forever. David took one last look at the lighthouse where his old life had ended and his new one had begun. He thought about the scared, lonely engineer he had been just weeks ago, and marveled at how much had changed. "Are you sad to leave?" Luna asked, reading his expression. "No," David said, watching Stella play with children from the Haven ship. Kids who, like her, were bridges between different worlds. "I'm excited to see what comes next." The journey to Haven Station took 3 days, and David spent much of it learning about their new home. The station was massive, a city floating in space that housed refugees, diplomats, traders, and families from across the galaxy. There were schools where children learned about dozens of different cultures, parks where beings from water worlds could swim alongside those who breathed different atmospheres, and laboratories where the greatest minds from multiple civilizations worked together to solve problems that affected everyone. "It's like a dream," David said as their ship approached the station. "It's what the universe could be," Captain Nova replied, "if more people chose love over fear." When they arrived, David was amazed to discover how many families were like theirs: humans who had fallen in love with aliens, aliens who had chosen to protect Earth, and children who represented the hope of unity between different species. Stella wasn't unique in her abilities. There were dozens of hybrid children at the station, each with their own special gifts. But what made Stella special wasn't her powers. It was her wisdom, her compassion, and her absolute refusal to let anyone use her gifts for harmful purposes. Within weeks of arriving at Haven Station, she had become friends with children from a dozen different worlds, and her natural leadership abilities were already helping to resolve conflicts in the station's schools. David found work using his engineering skills to help maintain the station's complex systems. Luna became part of the diplomatic corps, using her knowledge of multiple worlds to help negotiate peace agreements. And Stella attended school with children who understood exactly what it was like to be caught between different worlds. Months passed, and David realized that for the first time in his life, he was truly happy. He woke up each morning in a home filled with love, worked alongside beings who shared his passion for knowledge and exploration, and watched his daughter grow into someone who might actually help bring peace to the galaxy. One evening, as they sat together on an observation deck watching the stars, Stella looked up at her parents with that familiar wise expression. "Thank you," she said simply. "For what, sweetheart?" Luna asked. "For choosing love," Stella replied. "For showing me that family isn't about what world you're from or what you look like. It's about the people who will cross the universe to keep you safe." David pulled both his girls close, marveling at how one night with an alien goddess had led to this incredible life among the street.